Warning. Critique Revolve contains adult language and discussions. If you're easily offended, do not continue to listen.
Welcome to Rain Man Digital. This is Critique Revolve. I'm your host, Brian Smith, along with my co-host, Thomas Cowley. Thomas, say hi to the people.
What is up, everybody?
I said say hi, Thomas.
I don't listen to you, Brian.
Oh, my God. Look at you in your big boy pants now that you're on Rain Man all the time. Anyways, guys, we went and saw a movie for you. Thunder Buddies for Life.
2.
Yeah, we saw Ted 2 tonight. Seth MacFarlane, of course, returns to direct and write and act and all the things that Seth MacFarlane does. This one is rated R. It comes out on June 26th. I'll give you the quick synopsis. Newlywed couple Ted and Tammy Lynn want to have a baby. But in order to qualify to be a parent, Ted will have to prove he's a person in a court of law. Ted is coming again.
That almost sounds like a setup for Law & Order, which they made fun of in the show. Exactly.
I'm not going to lie to you. Okay, so TC and I kind of went into this movie, and TC, go ahead and tell them the cardinal sin that you committed.
Well, full disclosure, I hadn't seen Ted 1, and I thought of that as a strength for this for a couple of reasons. A, I did read the wiki in the theater.
Yeah, no, as we're sitting in the theater waiting for the movie to start, TC's like, I'm going to go ahead and read the wiki now.
Yeah. So I read the wiki before this one started, but honestly, part of my viewpoint on that, despite the fact that I didn't have the time to physically watch the first one, was, Brian, you've seen the first one, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it. I've watched
so that way we
Guy.
had a perspective of somebody who had seen both and
Right.
somebody who just saw this one.
Right.
Because I guarantee there's going to be people like me who are just,
oh, absolutely.
let's go see the sequel.
Well, I mean, the first Ted, let me find those numbers. Hold on, I looked them up. Now I have to find it yet. The first Ted grossed about $220 million here in the U.S. It did come out back in June of 2012, so we're only 3 years since the first one, because, you know, it's really hard to animate a puppet. And
that's about right, though. A lot of sequels are now 2 years, honestly.
Yeah, but
so 3 years is kind of like the supposed average, what it should be.
I don't know. I kind of look at it this way, man. If you're going to make a sequel to something like that, you kind of need to strike while the iron is hot. And I honestly, I know MacFarlane has like been hosting the Oscars and all of that stuff, so like he's still pretty far up there, at least in Hollywood. But Family Guy's been on the decline. American Dad, is that even still on?
I don't watch it. I wouldn't know.
It's better than Family Guy.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I haven't watched Family Guy in like 7 years. But I don't know. I feel like MacFarlane's star is falling, especially after A Million Ways to Die in the West.
That was a big smudge on his record. That was not a very good or well-received movie. By fans even, I would say, were disappointed by that.
Absolutely. And I think, honestly, man, with MacFarlane, it's one of those things where had he not been such a huge star as a writer, that would have killed his career.
A Million Ways to Die.
Yeah, I think A Million Ways to Die would have killed
had he not had Family Guy, American Dad, you know, Ted 1 at that point,
right?
Had he not had any of that,
if you would have only had one of those
if you came
things,
out the gate swinging with A Million Ways to Die, your gate's going to close right back in your face.
Right, exactly.
Now then again, though, part of that I would say is because traditionally it seems like MacFarlane has enough good ideas for a half hour to an hour of content.
Right.
For any given time. And even then, we've seen him recycle material. Anybody who's a fan of Family Guy will see both in his previous movies as well as Ted 2 direct jokes stolen from his previous work. Now, they'll be reworked into different ways, but exactly the same scenario happens.
Well, I mean, honestly, dude, it's not even really that reworked. I mean, there's a scene in, this is all in the trailers, so this isn't anything that we're going to, you know, screw up for you guys, but there's that thing where he spills all the semen.
That's in the trailers.
Yeah, and that happened to Peter Griffin exactly.
Exactly. Now, we didn't see it happen to Peter. This one, because it's an R-rated movie, we get to see the whole gratuitous glazing that was that.
Gratuitous glazing, I like it. But no, it's like, okay, so going into the movie, you pretty much know what to expect from MacFarlane at this point. I mean, he's been around forever. He brought along 2 other writers, you know, from his shows. He brought, what the hell are their names? God damn it, I got so many tabs open right now.
You're a tab whore, dude.
It's Alec, Sulkin, and Wellesley Wild are the other two writers, and they've worked with him previously on Family Guy, Late Late Show with Craig Kilborn, and A Million Ways to Die in the West as writers, and also Ted, the first one. And
so it's essentially the same team he's assembled
before.
It's
always this. I mean, it's always the same team. It's kind of like when you look at like a lot of the Simpsons stuff. It's the same people over and over again. Even when they branch out, they take 2 or 3 of the writers with them.
Right.
You know, it's what you've seen anytime you have somebody who's big on.
Colbert's doing that. He's taking some of his writers.
Well, of course he is. I mean, Conan did it when he left
The Late Show or whatever.
Well, no, Conan did it when he left The Simpsons.
Oh.
Because he wrote for The Simpsons for a long time, and then he took those guys. I mean, that's normal. You're going to take the guys that you're comfortable with. Saturday Night Live crew, they all do that. You know, you look at guys like Sandler and Farley and all of them. They take people that they're comfortable with, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
you do get very
the same
material.
Yeah, the same kind of storylines, the same kind of things happening, the same kind of jokes. And I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, after each review, they ask us to kind of give a brief little soundbite or whatever for what we thought. And I mean, my comments for this movie were that it was entertaining, it was sophomoric comedy, and it was exactly what you'd expect from Seth MacFarlane. It's one of those things where if you've seen any of Seth MacFarlane's stuff, you know exactly what you're going to see in this movie, which there's nothing wrong with that.
No, it is funny, and I mean, we both laughed a lot.
There were times now, and granted, the Arizona State thing, I think, hit really home, especially with the crowd that we saw the movie with.
Yeah, there's a local joke.
There's a local joke, which is fantastic. But of course, in this movie, you get Mark Wahlberg reprising his role. You get Seth MacFarlane, of course, as Ted or Peter Griffin, because they
same
sound
exact voice,
exactly the same. Then they bring in some new blood with Amanda Seyfried, and Jessica Barth comes back to reprise her role from the first movie. Now, you do lose Mila Kunis in this one, and Joel McHale.
What I did like, and that was one of the things I was afraid of, even having not seen the first movie, I was going to be upset if they didn't explain why Mila Kunis wasn't in it. Well, I won't spoil it.
Well, no, and it's actually kind of funny because it was a last-second decision, because it turns out the only reason she didn't do the movie, it wasn't a story thing, it was that she was pregnant with Kuchar's baby.
Right.
And that's why they couldn't have her in it, so it's the same thing as Cersei.
Cersei Lannister from
you know, being pregnant, so you need a body double. And,
no, so I mean, I like that they explained that though, and that's one
absolutely.
thing. The little details that are good, and again, the first hour even has a lot of good stuff. But one thing that, I mean, Brian and I were discussing this before, and I've said it in other reviews, that MacFarlane has enough good ideas for about an hour, and he does his jokes throughout that point, and then he sacrifices the humor and his original or his style, I would say, in order to finish the traditional beat-for-beat story that we've seen time and time again.
Right.
I mean, I know it sounds like we're reviewing A Million Ways at this point, but that was the same kind of cowboy story, except for the first half hour, which was MacFarlane's universe of jokes and reactions and things like that. And Ted, you know, too, while it is funny, it does the same exact thing. At a certain point, we're kind of like, all right, well, we kind of know this is going to happen, then this, and then here's how we're going to end it, because we have to.
Well, I mean, it's a formula.
Therefore, we lose some of the jokes, though. And that's one thing that, I mean, Brian, what do you can agree with me or not, that somebody like Mel Brooks, a comedy genius that has done countless great comedy movies.
Well, he did it first and he did it best.
He did it first and he did it best, but there was a small spoiler here. There's a fight scene near the end of the movie.
It's a joke.
And it makes absolutely no sense for as many people to get involved with it as there are. And not even to like a funny degree of people say, fuck it, let's fight kind of thing, which Mel Brooks had done in Blazing Saddles, where it's literally just like the script says we have to fight kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I mean,
and he was like talking about how movies always have that action at the end. Mel Brooks was thinking outside the box, and it's kind of like a satire.
Right. Well, and that was one of the things. I think that this movie, honestly, there are moments where it takes itself too seriously.
It really does.
And which seems weird because it's about a talking fucking teddy bear. But there are moments when you're watching it and it gets like sappy and it gets like sad and you're just like, really? Like,
I will say, though, they handled that surprisingly well for looking at a teddy bear and being like, oh, that is sad.
They did. No, and it's one of those things where I think that the first Ted movie missed out on a lot of the emoting from Ted himself.
Right.
And I know you didn't see it, so you don't obviously remember it.
Right.
But it was a very static character. It was kind of like watching any movie where there's a doll killer that's not Chucky. Well, because Chucky, they're always very careful to actually have his facial movements.
Right.
But you watch other movies in that same vein, like all of the knockoff movies, like Dolly Dearest and all of that, or even the R.L. Stein Goosebumps version, where the faces don't change. And the first Ted, I think, kind of suffered from that in a little bit. This one, they did a much better job with the eyes.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't make them look human, because that would have been stupid.
And creepy as hell. If you had human eyes on that.
Well, yeah, no, it would be terrifying.
Uncanny Valley shit.
Yeah, but there was definitely a softness to the face in a couple scenes where it didn't look like a blank expression. And I know that the movie, of course, is about him proving that he is a quote-unquote person.
So I think a lot of that probably had to do with, let's focus on the facial animation.
Absolutely. And I think they did a much better job from a technical standpoint there. Not only that, some of the music nods that they did were absolutely fantastic.
And MacFarlane's always had a thing for music and show tunes.
Well, obviously. And
song and dance.
Perfect example. So we're sitting there, and about the first 10 minutes before the credits start are some really rapid fire, really entertaining jokes.
Some really good bits.
Yeah.
A couple that I would say were one of the better ones in the movie as a whole.
Absolutely. And then all of a sudden, when they start rolling the credits, they go into like essentially the opening for the Oscars with the male dancers and the female dancers and Ted dancing around like he's Seth MacFarlane at
giant piano choreography.
And it was like watching the opening sequence from Family Guy.
Or any of the specials that he's done.
Any of the specials, or even the Comic Cavalcade thing that he did.
Yeah, like anything that was like an hour-long episode of one of his shows has the same thing.
And I get that that's like MacFarlane's thing. But honestly, it interrupted the movie, and I got bored by the end of it. And not because I hate show tunes, because I don't. I mean, I don't love them.
I don't hate show tunes.
I don't hate them. I don't love them, but I don't hate them. And I think that they can serve a purpose. If you're watching something like Moulin Rouge or Chicago.
They can serve a purpose, or they can be funny, or can be incredibly well done. The problem is when you have an animated character that no singing at this point. I'm watching some people in the background do a good job, but my focus is on something that was cheated out.
Well, and it was CGI.
Exactly. It's all done.
And honestly, the worst part about that whole sequence was the obviousness of the CGI.
Yeah, Ted had no weight to him. Sounds really weird.
No, it doesn't though, because let's go from a technical standpoint. When you say he has no weight, what Thomas means is that the laws of gravity don't apply, and it's like you're playing a video game that isn't well done when it comes to the physics of the game itself.
Exactly.
And when you throw a gun and it goes 500 yards.
Well, like again, small spoiler, but I really doubt people care with the opening sequence.
It's the opening sequence.
But Ted jumps on a guy's hat, his open top hat, and then that guy flips him up, and it's like, what does he weigh? Like a deck of playing cards? Like,
yeah, no, and
there's no weight or sense of gravity to
exactly. Well, and that's exactly what I'm saying. And it's like, and you can get away with that to a certain extent because he is
a teddy bear.
A teddy bear. He's essentially a cartoon character in the real world,
like Space Jam.
I was going to go with Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
No, that movie's terrible. Let's talk about Space Jam.
Wait, dude, did you seriously just say that Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Dude, it's not a good movie. Rewatch it today and tell me it's good.
I will.
All right.
And I will tell you it's good.
Well, you'll be wrong.
I had the biggest crush on Jessica Rabbit when I was a kid.
That explains a lot about you.
It actually does explain a lot about me. But, so with the movie, you go through and you see all of the things that are Seth MacFarlane-isms.
Yeah, the traditional.
But it's amped up a little bit because it is rated R. So there's more, piss jokes and shit jokes and
F-bombs.
And a lot of F-bombs.
And I will say that kind of gives MacFarlane's humor more punch. Because on TV, you kind of have to pull that back. You can't say certain things.
Yeah, okay, so...
And MacFarlane's jokes in this movie would feel more like something you would say to your friends.
No, it does. It definitely feels more natural in what they're saying, and it's not like it's watching Bob Saget do comedy.
Oh, God.
Because that's just painful. Nobody wants to watch Danny Tanner say fuck and cocaine 900 times.
Right.
It worked for a year after the show ended. Please stop, Bob. Please. But... so in watching the movie, though, like you go through it and you see all of the tropes and you see everything else that you'd expect from a MacFarlane movie, and that's fine. And I guarantee you that fans of MacFarlane's stuff will absolutely love it. Now, this isn't going to be something that you'll watch over and over and over again.
This is no Monty Python.
Right. And
not
a lot
even
of
Tropic Thunder or Pineapple Express.
And a lot of the jokes in here actually are going to be very dated in 5 years. There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that works because it's conversational and because it's current events kind of stuff,
or stereotype with like tropes that we've all seen before and we'll see time and time again.
Right. There wasn't a whole lot. I honestly, in watching the movie, I don't feel like there was anything new.
And that's where my biggest problem comes from, is that MacFarlane doesn't push himself to try something new. Mel Brooks has done that. Many other comedians have done that.
So there's a joke in the movie about Tyler Perry. And the joke is hilarious. But after the joke, I actually started thinking about the movie, and Seth MacFarlane is kind of like Tyler Perry in that he found the niche that he wants to just kind of drain
cultivate.
dry.
Oh, okay. I was going with a more positive.
No, I'm going well, it's Tyler Perry. You have to go negative. And not because I'm racist. Because I actually respect the shit out of Tyler Perry. He found something that works for him, and the guy's worth like $200 million. Like, good job, dude. Good job. But no, like I almost feel like MacFarlane he has like this monopoly on Fox cartoons that aren't The Simpsons, and he's kind of turned that into like this monopoly on these silly movies that are entertaining and give Mark Wahlberg an outlet to be goofy.
I will say,
Wahlberg's another interesting study though. Because you look at what he does, and it's like he does shit like Pain and Gain, which was a surprisingly really good movie.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It was surprisingly really, really good. But then he does shit like Transformers 4,
which was a heaping pile of feces,
everyone knew it. It was awful. And then he does like Ted and Ted 2, and he used to do serious movies, and it's just so weird.
Well, I mean, the guy can do comedy.
His timing. That was one of the things I know you actually mentioned it during the movie, was that his timing was really, really good with a lot of the jokes.
Yeah. Come on, it's a comedy movie.
I can't even think of fucking words here today. But yeah, no, his timing was really good, and I was actually a little bit surprised. It was a lot better in this one than it was in Ted. I mean, it's not that he missed anything in Ted, but it was definitely more spot on.
Refined.
And the recurring themes or jokes in the movie didn't get stale or old, which I'll give MacFarlane credit there for writing.
Right.
I didn't feel like the few kind of recurring jokes that they had that would pop up occasionally.
They were well placed.
They were well placed, and they weren't overused.
Right.
I didn't feel like any of those jokes were like, oh, really? Again, you're going to hit that well one more time, dude?
And he is a practitioner of traditional comedy rules, like the rule of three. We see that a couple times. Right. One of the recurring jokes only appears 3 times, and yeah, exactly that one. He said, thankfully he didn't say that one on mic, because that's a good one.
No, and that was why I was skirting around it, because that was the one that I was talking about. Because you guys will see it, and for those of you that listen to our shows, you'll know what when I said that Thomas talked about his timing, you'll know exactly what joke we're talking about.
It shows up 3 times only, which is one of the rules of comedy, which just it seems to work and has for a lifetime.
Well, yeah, you throw a 4th one in there, and everybody hates the first 3.
Right.
Like, that's how that works.
So MacFarlane can do what he does, but that's just it. It's only what he does. It's not exactly anything new in that regard. Wahlberg does a good job. He's proven he can do comedy with delivery and timing, and not just working with MacFarlane. He's done that with like Pain and Gain.
Pain and Gain, the other guys.
Exactly.
I mean, it's funny. It's one of those things where he's
transformed himself a lot into a bunch of different things.
He has. No, I mean, you look at his resume, and it's just so ridiculous, because you think about where he started, and then kind of, where
Marky Mark.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he started as Marky Mark, which is just silly. And then he did stuff like Rockstar and Planet of the Apes, Perfect Storm, Three Kings.
He was in The Fighter.
The Italian Job. Right. No, I'm just going in order.
I was going in order.
But yeah, like Four Brothers, Invincible.
That was
The Departed, all very serious movies. Shooter, We Own the Night. Then that abysmal run of The Happening and Max Payne. But then he goes into like movies like Date Night, The Other Guys, and then jumps into The Fighter.
Right.
And Contraband. And then he does Ted, but then he goes back into Broken City, and it's so weird. Like,
it seems like he wants to be taken seriously as an actor, but show that he can also laugh at himself and do ridiculous stuff, which I do respect the man for, because not everyone is one or the other all the time.
Well, I mean, you look at guys like that started in comedy, and you look at like Adam Sandler, who has tried desperately to be taken seriously as an actor, but then does shit like 8 Crazy Nights.
Right.
Just kind of gives up on life, or the one where he played his own sister. Like he tries really, really hard. And I actually watched, this is totally off off topic, but I watched The Cobbler.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Okay, so Brian will have to answer for those crimes.
Yeah, no, I did. I liked it. It made me feel really bad about myself that I liked it. I'm not going to lie. Like, that was one of those where I was like, really?
No, but I mean, other comedians have done serious roles and proven their worth. Robin Williams, for
Right.
example.
But I mean, for
Jim
every
Carrey.
But for every one of those, you have Dane Cook.
Right.
Like, it just doesn't always work out.
No,
But Wahlberg started the other way and was always very
Exactly.
serious. And then, unlike Donnie, he chose not to do horror and went into the comedy realm. And he's actually done really, really well at it. And he's good at it, which was super surprising for me. And just looking at like what he's done, I was like, God, I didn't even realize he did all of those.
Yeah.
And I've been super impressed with that. And then looking at somebody like Amanda Seyfried.
What did you think of her?
I like her a lot,
Mm-hmm.
just as an actress, from In Time and Les Mis and what else did she do that I really liked her? Oh, Dear John. And yeah, I said it. Don't care. Fuck you guys. Anyway, Letters to Juliet was a good one too. Shut up.
Oh my God.
Good movies. But no, I like her a lot. I think that she has kind of a very unique look. Like, yes,
Okay.
she's blonde and yes, she's blue-eyed, but she's not what you would expect.
Stereotypically?
Yeah, she's not stereotypically beautiful.
Okay.
She's pretty.
Very pretty.
And I mean, I'd fuck her.
Okay, then.
I'd call her Gollum the whole time. But
That's worse.
but no, I mean, like, she is a very pretty girl, but she's not like that traditional
She's
sense.
not the traditional Hollywood.
Well, and I wouldn't even go, because traditional
Pretty.
Hollywood isn't what is traditional in Hollywood
it
anymore.
still kind of is. Let's get real.
It is, but it isn't, dude. I mean, anymore, it's like if you weigh less than 12 pounds, you get to be a movie star. And,
Yeah, exactly. The same traditional thing they've been
But no,
preaching.
and I think that, she's actually shown, in this movie, she showed a little bit of range. And her comedy she kept up.
She showed as much range as was possible by the script, which goes
Right.
from serious to funny to sad, and which I was impressed that I bought all of it,
Right.
because there's another actress in this that doesn't
God.
sell that so
Okay,
well.
so we'll talk about her. Okay, so Jessica Barth, she plays Ted's wife,
What's her name? Like Tammy, Tawny, Tiara,
Tammy Lynn.
Tammy Lynn.
Tammy Lynn. Now, her pedigree, I guess, is she played Church Girl in How I Met Your Mother. She was in an episode of CSI. She was Kim in the Portal video game.
Okay.
She did a couple voices on Family Guy.
Not a whole lot, is what you're saying.
Hold on, I'm getting there. And then she did Ted. So, yeah, she's a relative unknown. Obviously, she got the gig for Ted because she had done Family Guy, where she was essentially just playing voices. She did Kate Hudson's voice, Sookie Stackhouse's voice, and then some chick named Brandy. And over the course of 5 years, she did 3 voices for Family Guy. So MacFarlane loves her, and she got the part in Ted because, I mean, let's face it, she's pretty hot.
She's attractive. I find Amanda much more attractive than what's her name? Tammy?
Tammy Lynn. Her real name is
character's
Jessica. but
Jessica.
Yeah. Oh, and she was also in Get Smart. She played a waitress. And no, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, she couldn't act
Her
way.
range was very limited, and she had
I don't know, man. She had that Boston accent down.
the Boston accent, and that, frankly, annoying, always chewing gum, snapping thing.
Oh, God, so bad.
She could do that very well, and part of me wonders, was she limited by what her character had to be, and was she just limited by the script, or both?
It's tough to tell because that is such, and this is one of the things that we talked about, that almost all of these characters are so fucking one-dimensional, it's disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, the first Ted gave, from what you've told me, Brian,
Yeah.
Wahlberg has more options. Mila Kunis is a real person in that.
Well, she's a real actress.
Exactly.
Like, it turns out and Joel McHale, like, they know how to act. Giovanni Ribisi, who we haven't even touched on yet, he's in both of these. Donnie does make a comeback in this one, but those are all actors. Like, they are, and I'm not taking anything away here from anybody except for Jessica Barth. And
Good dick.
the flame war, it is what it is. But no, like, you look at it and, like, essentially for this movie, like, Wahlberg had all of those other people that he was kind of feeding off of and talking to and dealing with, and I think Mila Kunis kind of brought a little bit of validity to the cast in that, she's an established actress and she has done multiple roles and very different roles.
Well, also and it just comes down to the writing on that. She is a real person.
Oh, you mean in the movie? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In the movie, she's like a real believable person. And it feels like this one, even Amanda, I can never pronounce her last name.
I don't know. I say Seyfried. It's Seyfried.
Seyfried.
Mike probably knows, but only because he wants to bang her.
Character is probably the closest to like a real person outside of Morgan Freeman.
Well, even Morgan Freeman is almost a caricature of Morgan Freeman. He's
more of a caricature of himself, yes. Yeah. But what I'm saying is it feels like a cast of characters or jokes, like this person's this stereotype, and we're going to throw this.
Well, and okay,
that McFarlane's done.
In the first movie, though, like Mila Kunis is a stereotypical, you need to grow up if you want to be my boyfriend kind of girl.
Right, so but there's a little more validity to it because there's a teddy bear.
Well, hold on. She actually, right. You hang out with a teddy bear.
This is a group that's like, yeah, that's okay and normal.
Well, no, like everybody just completely accepts Ted.
Like, I love one scene where, yes, we kind of know that Ted exists in this universe. Like, he was famous 20, 30 years ago, and it was a whole media shitstorm. But there's got to be people who haven't seen or heard that story, I would think. At least a younger generation that's like, who the fuck are you talking about if he's been fallen out of the limelight? Right. And he's at like the doctor's office, essentially. He's like, hey, yeah, where's the bathroom? And this woman's just like, oh, hey, talking bear, right down the hall to your left. This is a normal day for me. Like, what? Is nobody like, what the fuck is happening right now? Did I get drugged? Right, well, why is this talking to me?
Right, exactly. Well, and that's what I mean. It's like, you watch the movie and everybody just accepts that Ted is a thing and part of their universe, which is fine, I guess. It just seems odd.
You can't help but be thrown by it.
A little bit.
Even if that's established in the world.
Well, and then like even when they're at Comic-Con and Ted's like walking around and people are calling him a Wookiee. Like what child do you...
Ewok, you mean?
Or an Ewok, sorry. What child do you know that's a foot tall? That could dress as a bear and walk around by himself?
Right.
Like, and it was just like this normal thing. It was just, it was a little bit absurd. It was a whole lot of absurd.
McFarlane's stuff's done that before. I mean, there's a talking goldfish, a talking alien, and a talking dog.
Yeah, but you know what the difference is? You know what the difference is?
They're cartoons.
Those are cartoons.
Yeah. Adult cartoons, but cartoons nonetheless.
They're still cartoons, man. I mean, we had Scooby-Doo growing up.
Yeah. Which is still, I think, something that doesn't translate very well to film.
Well, I don't know. I watched the live action Family Guy, American Dad porno. And
okay, then more than I needed to know. Why do I have to constantly learn about you and Mike's sex life every show I do with the two of you? Why?
That's just how that works.
God damn it, man,
bro!
If I could take notes, it'd probably get you sent to a insane asylum.
It's true. It's true. Although I don't know, man. I mean, I guess I could open up your can here. TC.
My can of worms?
Your can of sexual fetishes.
The difference is I just don't open it. You're like, hey, everyone, check out this can of worms.
No, because see, here's the thing, man. All right, so let's go completely off topic. Fuck this movie. And here's the deal, man. Like, you're so reserved about all your private shit. I just prefer to just be like, yeah, this is it. Like, just deal with it. Either you like me or you don't. I don't really care. This is how I am.
I just always find it funny that there's always some way in which we learn a little bit more.
That I watch parody porn? Like, who doesn't? Who didn't watch Obama nailin' Palin? Like, who didn't watch that?
Moving on. Good God.
But no, okay. So, in Ted 2, once again, it's the same tropes. It's the same stuff that you're expecting, but it's done in an entertaining way, and it's definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, I would give it a watch.
And if you get a group of friends together and you go to the theater, you're gonna have a good time.
Or if you liked the first one or McFarlane's other stuff.
Right. If you're a fan of McFarlane, you definitely want to see it. And if you're kind of on the fence about McFarlane, which is kind of where I sit, is like I'm not really sure how much I like him or not. I liked the first Ted movie and I liked Ted 2, and I don't feel like Ted 2 was a massive drop off in quality from Ted. I don't feel like I don't feel like it was a Hangover 2 situation.
Where it's just the same thing.
It wasn't the same movie. It was a completely different plot, completely different characters.
I will say there's one thing near the end that kind of repeats itself. It's not a huge deal breaker, but like the order of events near the end of the movie. But again, that does kind of feel like MacFarlane sacrificing some of the story or some of the charm that is what his fans like about him in order to, quote, finish the story that must be told.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things, man, where the same thing with like the first Ted or A Million Ways to Die in the West. You have the first act is good or decent. The second act is a little bit longer than it should be.
Right.
And the third act is hurry up and finish. So it's a lot like
the
your
last
sex
15
life.
minutes.
A lot like your sex life, TC, from what I understand. It's no. But yeah, so I mean, it's it's not bad, dude. Like I liked it, and I liked a lot of the bit players that were in it too, and the cameos that they do. And I don't want to ruin anything when it comes to the cameos. The cameos were fantastic, especially early on.
Yeah.
Early cameos were fucking great, and also stay till after the credits.
There is an after credits scene.
There
That's
is
worth it.
It is worth it. It is worth it. And interesting to note, you know who Stephen Collins is, right?
Yeah.
Now that I've pulled up his picture
Right.
on the computer. Stephen Collins, of course, is the dude from Seventh Heaven. The
Yeah.
dad. Who, while they were filming Ted 2, there some things
Came to light.
came to light. The pearly gates were opened and Stephen Collins was judged for his sins. And they actually had a really lengthy he was actually very involved, I guess, in Ted 2, the original script, and had actually started shooting a lot of it when all of the allegations and everything started flying. And so he was completely cut out of the movie. And that's why we get Flash Gordon as big as we did again. Like, that's the legit thing.
Yeah.
Like, Stephen Collins had like a really big like cameo role. It was cut.
It had to be cut for safety reasons.
I think it had to be cut so that people wouldn't riot in
Respectful
the streets.
reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it turns out when you play with little kids, you're not allowed to be in movies about teddy bears.
It's all worse now.
Right? It is. It is all worse. But no, like the way that they utilize their cameos and their kind of, I guess, guest appearances, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah, essentially it is that.
Because it's kind of like the View Askew universe, where you'll get like those cameo roles for like George Carlin.
Yeah.
He'll pop up, in a couple different movies, and they do the same thing here in the Ted movies, or they have. And you look at like the Flash Gordon, and in this one you get Morgan Freeman, and the jokes that they do that are stuff that people say in real life.
Yeah,
especially about like Morgan Freeman. What they say about Freeman when you first meet him is fantastic. There's a lot of really good parts to the movie as a whole. I don't know, TC, do you want to give it a 1 to 10?
If I give it a 1 to 10, 6.5.
You give it a 6.5. Well, the first movie got a 7 on the IMDb.
Maybe a 7. I think because I did laugh a fair amount. It's just that you don't come to that for the story; you come to that for the jokes,
right? Because
if that's all you care about, then you'll have a good time.
Well, exactly. It's kind of like I went and saw Jurassic World, and the thing with, I know Mike reviewed Jurassic World, and my whole takeaway from Jurassic World was it was a good sequel to Jurassic Park. I was entertained.
That's kind of what you were going for.
I mean, that's the only reason you go. I watched Jurassic Park again, and it does hold up, and I really, really still like that movie. But at the same time, I don't have as fond of, well, how do I want to say this? Like, my memories of how much I liked it are far more than I actually liked it. I was 13.
Nostalgia is going to affect part of that, but Jurassic Park is quintessentially a much better movie.
It is, and Jurassic Park was actually the very first movie I ever saw in theaters by myself.
Okay.
Like, with just a friend.
Right.
Instead of like
mom and
dad or like a big group of friends. It was just me and a friend. I was 13 years old or 12 years old. And I thought it was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Because, it was the experience about it. But anyway, with MacFarlane, you're getting the same shit. It's the same shtick. It's the same movie. It's essentially the same kinds of jokes, but done in a different way. The storyline is there. There's at least a story. The character arcs are
non-existent, except for maybe one character.
I don't really think so. I really like. Which character are you thinking?
I'd say, if anything, Ted has a bit of a change. but that's kind of because the story forces him to, and not in any significant way.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like he had like a come to Jesus moment.
A little bit, but again, not anything major, because this is a comedy, and unlike other ones, it doesn't ever go too heavy-handed. There's never really a overall message that they're making fun of, something like Life of Brian or Dogma.
Right.
You know, this is just more of a slapstick, gross jokes, let's swear, MacFarlane style bro comedy.
Well, and I guess it's one of those things where in this movie they very easily could have gone into the cultural issues.
They absolutely could have gone down that route.
They briefly touched on it.
And then right when you think they're going to delve into that, they take a big step back and go in a different direction just to kind of give the movie another half hour.
Yeah, I guess that works. I mean, honestly, I think that the runtime on this movie is probably about 15, 20 minutes too long. It runs at like 1:15. I think it like 95 minutes, I think would have been fine. I
would disagree. I would say that it's not that. I think if it was that much shorter, it would kind of feel very by committee cookie cutter. This is what MacFarlane knew would sell. I think it was more that he didn't have enough ideas to make it to make the runtime feel genuine.
Okay.
Like in that it needed the runtime it had, but it feels like it panders about and piddles about for a bit.
Right.
Because he didn't have any good reason for certain things to happen. And he's like, oh yeah, I remember this thing I brought up. I better finish that. And then that'll take me another 15 minutes, and then that'll get us to the end.
No, that's definitely fair. A couple other things that I do want to touch on here. Patrick Warburton and Michael Dorn.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. That's all I want to say about it. They were fucking awesome. Freaking amazing. But anyway, guys, I think that's going to do it for us here on Critique Revolve on Rain Man Digital. Thanks for tuning in. We always appreciate it. And Thomas, say goodbye to the people.
Have a good night, everybody. See Ted 2 if you feel like you're a MacFarlane fan or in that mood.
This would sharpen you up and make you ready for a bit of the old ultra-violence.